highest levels of American government. Over the past 2 years, as I fought against left-wing ideologies in the political arena, I was also studying my adversaries through deeper research. I read hundreds of books, papers, studies, and newspaper articles that revealed the historical development of the modern left and its ideological foundations. Over time, I began to see the bigger picture. The campaign to embed critical race theory in American life was only one facet of the radical left's long march through the institutions, which had begun 50 years ago. America's Cultural Revolution tells the full story. I outlined the progression of the left-wing ideology from the student radical movement of the 1960s to the so-called anti-racism movement, which set fire to the country in 2020. As an activist, I often have to communicate in small bursts of simplified rhetoric. As an author, I am able to be expansive, tracing the patterns of history, exploring the intricacies of ideology, and plumbing the depths of the personalities that have shaped the way we think, feel, and act. The lesson of this book is a serious one. There is a rot spreading through American life. The country's foundations are starting to shake loose. A new nihilism is beginning to surround the common citizen and all of the institutions that matter: his government, his workplace, his church, his children's school, even his home. He knows we have been given a gift, the American Republic, but there is no guarantee that it will last. He can feel it in his bones. My hope in writing this book is to substantiate these institutions and to reveal the inner history of America's Cultural Revolution. It is a genealogy of darkness, an attempt to establish the human lineage of the new nihilism that threatens to overwhelm the country. But it is also a work of determined optimism. If we are to save this country from disintegration, we must first see the crisis clearly and confidently. We cannot look away. Introduction. America's Cultural Revolution. In 1975, the Soviet dissident Alexander Solzhenitsyn spoke to a coalition of labor leaders in New York City and denounced the American radical Angela Davis, who had become a symbol of international communism and violent revolution against the West. During this period, the Soviet government had churned out propaganda celebrating Davis as a world historical figure and instructed millions of school children to send her cards and paper flowers. In our country, literally for one whole year, we heard of nothing at all except Angela Davis, Solzhenitsyn said. But this campaign was based on a lie. The Soviets had created a global slave state with a network of gulags, dungeons, and prison camps extending from Vladivostok to Havana. Solzhenitsyn himself had spent 8 years enduring imprisonment, torture, and forced labor. Davis, however, followed the propaganda line. During a publicity tour of the Soviet Union in 1972, she praised her hosts for their treatment of minorities and denounced the United States for its oppression of political prisoners. But during an unscripted encounter, Solzhenitsyn said, a group of Czech dissidents approached Davis with a plea. "Comrade Davis, you were in prison. You know how unpleasant it is to sit in prison, especially when you consider yourself innocent. You have such great authority now. Could you help our Czech prisoners? Could you stand up for those people in Czechoslovakia who are being persecuted by the state?" Davis responded with ice. "They deserve what they get. Let them remain in prison." For Solzhenitsyn, this moment revealed everything. Davis embodied the spirit of left-wing revolution, sacrificing the human being in service of ideology. Her commitment to the great abstractions, liberation, freedom, humanity, was a ruse. That is the face of communism, he said. That is the heart of communism for you. The Soviet Union eventually collapsed, and many Americans considered the question of left-wing revolution settled. It had proven disastrous everywhere it had been tried: Asia, Africa, Latin America. The world had learned its lesson, they believed, and moved beyond the promises of Marx, Lenin, and Mao. But they were wrong. Although the left-wing cultural revolution had self-destructed in the Third World, Over time, it